Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of the Cam Otis Show. Today we have a good friend of mine, Matt Schmidt, on the show. Matt is the founder and president of the Engage Foundation, which if you hear me referencing my Engage kids, those are the little rugby kids I'm always out with every weekend. Matt's the founder and president of the Engage Foundation. He's also a fellow U of A grad, a little bit more prestigious at the law school there than my agricultural stuff, but that's all right. And he works there right now with some current law students on some stress management techniques. So we really wanted to dive in and unpack that kind of stuff. So thanks for being on the show, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
So Matt, just to start off, jump right into that with your work with the law students here at U of A. Do you want to walk us through a little bit of your process that you work with the students? And
yeah, sure. So to give you a little background, obviously the law is very stressful. And I think actually when you graduate from school, it becomes stressful for a lot of reasons. But when you're in school, you get to take a lot of breaks. You get summer break, you get Christmas break, you get spring break. You get to and then you go through different grade processes where you go from one grade to the next. So you get to hit the reset button a lot. Mm-hmm. And you get to kind of relax for a little bit before you enter the next chapter. When you get out of school, it took me a few years to realize this, but there are no breaks until you retire. So it took me a while to learn and read about how to manage what essentially becomes a marathon at that point, mm-hmm. Where you no longer really have any break. It's just full go all the time. So over time, I've read a lot of books about mindfulness. I read a lot stress management. I've done a lot of studying. And I decided after I accumulated enough knowledge to pass the word down to the law students and now actually fellow lawyers or anyone that wants to listen to me talk about stress management, how some strategies that can help you overcome this thing called life.
Great. Well, I already got one thing I want to jump on because I love that. You mentioned the reset button, no days off. I don't know when the first time you told me this, Dad, but I know I've heard it about a million times when I said, I'm late, I don't want to do anything today. You say, hey, boy, there's no days off in life. That's all there is to it. So I really like that. It's all about managing the marathon because you really got to get up every morning and do it and start working towards those goals because otherwise you're going to wind up falling behind.
So Matt, how do you do that? I'm just let me back up before we jump into that. Is this like a formal relationship that you have with the U of A, or you just put a picture of yourself on the bulletin board in the library?
I reached out to the U of A faculty and I said, hey, I want to start giving some lunch talks about, have them come in for lunch. I'll provide the lunch. That usually gets them in.
Free food gets all college students.
And then, students are hungry. So I get them in for lunch. And then I started doing that a few years ago. Now that turned into being a guest lecturer for one of the classes at the law school. And actually me and another faculty member are potentially working on a curriculum to where I could actually teach a 1-credit class on mindfulness, because there are schools all over the country that are starting to teach this stuff, especially younger generations, because there's a lot going on in the modern world where especially younger generations are struggling with stress and anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. So how do you teach mindfulness? What are like your 3 points?
Yeah. So how much time do you have?
That's why I said 3 points.
over the course of all the readings I've done, I've come up with about 5 strategies that you can dive into the more or less you want to. But one is recognizing what you have control over and what you don't have control over, focusing on what you do have control over. Limiting the amount of choices you have to make on any given day. That's primarily by making the choices you have to make before you have to make them. Having more awareness. That's being aware of both the positive and the negative, and being aware of how you can reject the negative.
Yep. So you got a lockup.
Yep, he's locked up. Oh gosh.
And then
Matt, I'm going to have to ask you to
My
do a take two on that question because you're locked up at this point.
The heck?
Okay.
There you are. That's
Okay.
all right. So here we go. Take two on that question. So what are those pillars or the three main things or however you define them of mindfulness that you help these soon to be lawyers understand?
Sure. So after reading enough books, I've found that there's about 5 pillars that come up more often than not. The 5 are acknowledging what you have control over and what you don't have control over, and focusing on what you do have control over, forgetting about what you don't have control over. Mm-hmm. Limiting your choices, primarily by making the choices before they have to be made. Having more awareness about your surroundings so that you can recognize the negative and the positive and focus more on the positive. Be aware of the negative and flip those negatives into positives. Having more focus on the present by not worrying so much about the past or the future. And then being social, getting involved in the community, and not isolating yourself, especially when you are anxious, stressed, or depressed, getting out in the community and being interactive with other people.
So on that last one, that's one of my favorite ones because of the way our society is drifted into this digital connection that's okay, that's still interaction. So you're specifically talking about physical interaction with other people then, right?
Yes, I am. And we could get into it, but social media can be healthy, but it can also be destructive. So social media interaction, you got to be very careful with that. I'm, yes, primarily talking about face-to-face interaction with other people. There's not enough of that today. And so the more of it, the better. And I will stress that, especially when you are upset, depressed, stressed, it's okay to reach out to other people and talk about it with other people. Because more often than not, they're going to tell you that they're in the same boat you are. And having that social interaction helps you realize that you're not alone in any of this. So.
Right. And I think that's one thing also, like even going beyond just the talking through issues and that type of thing. We are social creatures. That kind of goes back to the lizard brain side of things, and just getting out and working with other groups, working with other people, just talking through things, having these face-to-face conversations, that can do a lot for you by just waking you up and giving you that energy to go on and continue with your day.
And, Camden, I think it's primarily why you and I do engage, not only to get out there with the kids, but especially with the younger generations, to teach the kids that being on the computer all day is not a healthy thing. You got to get out and interact with others, be kind to others, and get some exercise.
Exactly.
No, you reminded me when you were talking about, when they interact and realizing that somebody else has similar problems. It's one of my favorite phrases: misery loves company. When you're in the shit, the mud and the muck, and it's cold and it's wet, you form some serious bonds with people in those situations, or somebody's shooting at you to add into it even more. But that's that common ground that allows those relationships to build if you allow them to, as opposed to sitting in the corner feeling sorry for yourself.
I agree with that.
I think that touches on something I've seen a lot in some different studies about, the kind of misery loves company. It was this long study about these, I believe it was in Chicago, this mentor program where they were taking these at-risk youths and they're pairing them up with mentors and trying to measure the effect that the mentorship was having on them. And they found there was a slight positive effect, but about half of the kids went tumbling down the other direction. And the reason they found was because there was a summer camp that they grouped them all up and shipped them off to a summer camp for a week. And basically all the kids that were having issues they're locked up in a cabin together for a week, and they figured out ways to cause bigger problems and to spiral their lives even worse by just building off of that negativity rather than focusing on the positivity that they were getting through the mentorship program.
Hey, let me hit pause again. getting that reverb, Matt. I think it might.
Do you think so? I dialed in via internet. Do you think it'd be better if I dialed in? It gave me two options, like internet or physical dial-in. I'm wondering if one of those would be better.
I don't know. I mean, I've always used the internet.
Okay.
I had one thought on it, Matt, because when you picked it up and were messing with the volume, it went away completely. Do you think it might be like your phone sitting on something?
Might be. Is that better?
That could be it. Yeah,
definitely comes through a little bit better.
Camden.
Did it go away?
Well, it's only there when Camden or I are talking, so I'm not hearing it now while I'm talking.
It's probably because my phone was sitting against something, and the volume is actually what it's sitting on. So maybe that's. So if I just hold it, maybe that'll be better.
Yeah. And to tell you the truth, I've although we record it and have the videos, I'm not posting them yet, so it's not that big a deal. One of these days I'll start doing that also. But
that's another couple hours.
I'll just hold the phone.
Yeah. No, that sounds like it might be best. Say that again, Camden.
I said that's another couple hours editing.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't hear anything, so that's good.
Good. All right. Can we go take 2 on that shot, Cam?
Yep. Yeah. So, Matt, that reminds me a lot of some studies I was looking at. I think it was in the Chicago area, and they took a bunch of at-risk youth and they grouped them all up into a mentorship program. And the idea behind the study was to measure whether or not the mentors were effective in curbing the at-risk youth into better directions in their lives. And the really interesting thing is that even though there was a slight positive effect for most of the youth with the mentors, there actually somewhere around half of them had a huge negative effect. And what they basically found was that these at-risk youth, the troublemakers really, they all went off to a summer camp, and they all wound up in a summer camp together, to where all of the troublemakers spent a week in a cabin basically figuring out how to make more trouble. No. And they wound up that those half of the kids just tumbled all the way back down, and they had terrible economic success, no economic success later in life, whereas the other half of the kids made it. And so I think that ties in so well with the misery loves company, because it's if you really just dwell on the negative there, it can trap you and it can pull you all the way back down. But you also have to be able to try to look at the positive and grow on that side of things. Yeah, and I think especially with today's modern culture, there's so much negativity around us. With I don't care what side of the political spectrum you fall on. It's a mess out there, and everyone fighting with each other. And you go on Facebook, you can't spend more than 1 minute on there without finding people fighting. Mm-hmm. The other thing about Facebook is everyone shows the best side of themselves. So you look and you see everyone seems to have a perfect life except for you. And so it's a facade. And so you got to be aware of that, or it can drag you down. Oh yeah, definitely. I know I'm one of those guys. You'll think I have a perfect life because I post 3 pictures a year with my fiance looking all happy, but that's it. I'm not posting every single day when I wake up feeling like crap. I mean, I don't know how many times, I'll see a picture of a beautiful family, husband, wife, husband saying, I've never been happier with everything. And then find out a week later, like they're getting a divorce. Mm-hmm. I'm just, I thought I just saw on Facebook, it looked like the perfect life. And I think with social media, you got to be careful with that stuff because it makes you feel isolated. Right. When you see how good everyone else is doing, when the reality is everyone's just like you. Everyone's struggling through some similar version of what you're going through. Mm-hmm.
So do you bring your young lawyers, mentees, I don't know what you call them, but do you bring them together for like networking things or do interactions with them, or how do you do that? Well, I
have my seminar, and I always tell them if they ever want to chat or go out and talk about these things to email me or call me. It's only happened a couple times. I think they're a little shy or reserved about reaching out, but my door is always open. I always tell them that, it wasn't too long ago that I went to the U of A law school, so I know what they're going through and can share any of the tips or knowledge that I've accumulated over my 10 years in the legal industry.
So how did that drive you to, or how does engage come into play here? I mean, it sounds like which one's the chicken and which one's the egg?
Well, I started as a lawyer, started reading all these great books about, mindfulness, social interaction. Law gives me a lot. It didn't give me everything I wanted. And our firm does stress and focus on being a part of the community. So I thought, one part of my life that was missing was doing something with the community, because I've always been involved. I was an Eagle Scout. I've always in one way or another wanted to be involved in the community. So I kind of started the organization after getting my feet wet in the legal industry, and realizing that I wanted to do something a little extra and on the side to help Tucson.
Well, tell us a little bit about it. I know Camden mentions it throughout our show. We never really broke it down on what Engage, why the name, that sort of thing.
So Engage it's a nonprofit. We focus on providing free, fun, and safe recreational opportunities for, all kids, but we focus on kids that might not otherwise have the opportunity to participate in recreational activities. We focus on non-tackle rugby, primarily, as you both know, rugby is the best sport in the world.
Right.
And there's so many values that rugby instills that young people could really get more of. So we focus on rugby, but we do other things too. We have helped out at Ben's Bells, which is another organization here in Tucson. We've done taekwondo, anti-bullying classes, and every year we try and add, another couple things to the program to get the kids involved.
I love that, and I love the fact that there's kids out there that wouldn't have a chance to play a sport. I know Camden's told me that you've had the kids from the School of Deaf and Blind. That's an amazing thing, and I throw that out there as a huge thing. I don't know how many rugby organizations in the U.S. or even the world are opening the door to kids with that kind of disability. Are really, not just, there's a lot of sports organizations that focus on kids, underprivileged kids, economically underprivileged. But the fact that y'all are opening it up to these handy capable kids, I think that's the right word.
That's a good way of putting it.
My daughter will she'll let me know if I didn't use the right word later on. But the fact that you're getting those kids out there and getting them that experience and that interpersonal interaction amongst all of them, I just, I'm tickled pink about that when I hear about it and see the videos.
We both, working with I work mostly with the older kids, Matt with the younger kids, and we both have lots of stories about that group of kids and how great they are for our team. But it's one of those things. They're out there. All they needed was that extra step of getting them in the door, and then maybe every now and then a little bit of extra explanation, just because they can't always read my lips when I'm talking, and that's it. Those kids are out there. They're 100% bought in. They're ready to go, and they're some of the best players we have out there. And that's the coolest thing about it, is that even though these kids who would never have that opportunity otherwise, because of this great organization we're a part of, we're able to pull them out, get their foot in the door, and then they're, hit the ground running and loving every second of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you see some of our deaf students end up playing college rugby or beyond, because they are some of the best athletes we have. And they're some of the best students we have too, because they actually follow instructions. And they're some of the best communicators we have. They know that when they're passing, that the person has to be looking, because they know how important that is. They know that when they're receiving a pass, they have to be looking because of how important that is. And overall, they understand the importance of communication, and they use all their other senses to the best of their ability. And we've got some really good athletes from the Arizona School of Deaf and Blind.
It almost makes me think, like, how often as a rugby coach in different settings do you take away something from your players to make it harder so they can understand it better? That's where these kids are starting off, and that's why they're understanding things so much better, is because they're cutting out so many of the distractions and things that many of the other kids are facing.
No, that's something that I want to follow up with you, Matt. Is what are you taking away? When you have those kids out there, what are you getting from that?
Well, I'm learning a lot about coaching myself because I'm Camden, like 2 years into this now. So
Yep.
I'm still a newbie when it comes to coaching. And we both, I learn from them as much as they learn from me. I mean, every year seems to get better on both sides. The game is actually starting to resemble rugby. Instead of, like, I don't know what you would call what we saw 2 years ago, but just watching the kids interact with each other, also learning that, they don't always need as much coaching as I want to give them.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to actually understand what the goal is. But yeah, it's just a variety of different things. We have a value that we have like a theme of the week every week that we try and instill, like passion or commitment or service, teamwork, family. And when we have those discussions, I learn as much from them as they learn from me. So it's a mutually beneficial for both sides.
Definitely. I know that for me, I've learned so much about coaching with those kids. It just, I mean, for lack of a better way to put it, it really just throws a monkey wrench in your coaching handbook. It's not an impossible challenge to overcome, of course. I mean, we've been doing it for 2 years now, but it is definitely not something they teach you when you go get your L200 to go coach for USA Rugby. They don't teach you through these type of things and how to slow down the communication and work through all that specific stuff. You got to pick that up on the fly. And I think that's really what they've taught me so much. I mean, I tried to boil it all down, the patience and that type of thing, and the creativity and communication. Because, I mean, how many times, all three of us could raise our hands, how many times does a rugby player answer communication to anything the coach says, right? Every single question, the answer is communication. Well, when you have kids out there who don't communicate like everyone else, that's a big question mark on it. And that's a challenge that we've been going through. But it's when you tackle that as a team and as a group, you wind up with a better product in the end.
Well, don't forget protect the golden egg too. I mean,
oh yeah.
Another question, but I'm curious. So you're both of y'all are learning a lot more, refining your communication skills. Have you seen it play out in your on the professional side? Whether you're aware of it, I'd ask you to reflect on it right now. And has it affected your ability to communicate in your career field?
I think it has. I mean, obviously, one thing that we haven't really touched upon with regard to Engage is we have a board of directors and we have to run this organization. So we have a meeting every month. And as the president, I've learned a lot about how to be the president. And, as I read your book, and one thing that I like really can, I guess, I connect with was when it comes to delegating responsibility, but also knowing, as a leader, we like to have control over everything. And sometimes it's hard to give up that control. But when you pick the right people for the job, you have to give it up and you have to let them do the job. And so over time, I've learned to like loosen the reins a little bit. And when I tell people that they're in charge of this or that, to really just let them take charge and just kind of stand back and watch that. But I think over time, all of us have learned how to grow this organization through leadership and communication. I know Camden probably has something to add.
Well, I was going to say just on that note there, I think that's something that organizationally, when I think it was last year at the general meeting, you put that in, that it was, we want to add more opportunities outside of rugby. And if you have an idea, we want it, but it's your job to set that all up. And when you take that responsibility on, when you reframe it to where it's like, okay, hey, I had this really good idea. It's my job to put that all together, get that little bit more responsibility, and it gets that work ethic going a lot more, definitely, because it's your event. And that's the exciting thing about it.
Well, you're dealing with a volunteer organization, which is always an interesting place to be, because not like you can farm, right? That always makes it. There's always some interesting dynamics, but it sounds like y'all have a great board, and like I said, I love the program. So let me ask you this: where do you see it? Where do you see Engage in 5 years?
Well, it's interesting you bring up that it's pretty much a volunteering thing. So you're right. I can't really give people raises. I can't fire them if they're not doing a good job. And actually, we're going to have this conversation. We're having our AGMs coming up soon. We're going to have this conversation because I feel like we're at a very crucial point in the program where we have done it long enough to know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So we can either put our foot on the gas and keep working hard, or we can kind of go through the motions and, meet the status quo, if that's what you want to call it. But we can either plateau or move upward depending on how passionate my volunteers are going to be. Because again, there's nothing I can really give them. This is not a job, or they don't get paid. They have to kind of find that motivation in themselves to get it done. So we're going to have that conversation. But in the next 5 years, I'm hoping to continue to grow the activities we do. Cam and I have talked maybe in the long run having 2 seasons, rugby seasons, instead of 1 season. Mm-hmm. And I also want to raise enough money to begin providing scholarship opportunities for the kids that, for example, like non-tackle rugby, but really want to find out what tackle rugby is about and go play for one of the local clubs here in town, but maybe can't afford it. So I want to start working with some of the local organizations to see if we can develop scholarship opportunities to kind of refer those kids out to start playing real rugby or taekwondo or whatever it is that we support. Mm-hmm.
So do you see it staying in that same age bracket then, the kind of the 6 to 12-year-olds?
Well, so that's the thing is, if you we get 6 to 12-year-olds about, but we're 6 to 18. We just don't get too many older kids.
Ah, okay.
And so we try to keep that pretty broad so we can keep it open that way. But that's one of the big challenges, the big barriers to growth that we have, is that the more kids you have, the more you need to divide them up by age group to increase your competitiveness. We got a few 14-year-olds out there, and if it wasn't for me running around going, haha, you're slow, they probably would have left by now. And that's really what it comes down to, is because to get kids to have that kind of fun, that buy-in, you've got to make sure it's competitive. That's a big piece about sport, definitely.
Yeah, and I think one issue that we have to deal with, it's not really kind of out of our control, is that once kids reach high school, there are some opportunities for them to do things in high school that maybe they're not as interested in joining our program. I don't know. It's not a problem. I've been able to come up with a solution as to why we don't get 15 to 18-year-olds. Mm-hmm. I do know that we've gotten a few that have then essentially quit because there weren't enough their age, and they felt like they were too old for whatever we were doing.
That's always that double-edged sword, isn't it? Of you want the kids out there, but unless you get them out there in mass, it's hard to keep it going when you got the 1 or 2 sophomores and juniors out there, and they're having to play with 5th graders. Yeah, or Camden, just as bad.
Right. Those 5th graders are better than me, though.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's one of the really unique barriers and challenges that we face with Engage, is trying to bring together all of these different levels of skill and athleticism and putting them all into a team environment. That we have our league in the fall, our rugby Sundays, as we call them, once a month, and all those type of things. And we have older kids who've been out there for 3 years now. It's like, they're looking good. They are sharp. They can pass the ball well. They get the game. They get the strategy and all of that. But, when a kid comes out that has never passed the ball before, what do we always call them, Dad? Never evers, right?
Yep.
When you get 5 never evers out there with 2 kids who know what they're doing, those 2 kids are going to get frustrated when their team starts losing that game. And that's been one of the big challenges that we're working on overcoming, is just making sure that the kids are understanding the situation just as much. And it helps that it's usually the older kids that have this problem. But, going back to the golden answer, communication, I found it really just takes the, in between drills, pull them aside and say, hey, man, I know you're 14. I know you're athletic. I know that you can run around and score all these tries and everything, but they've never passed a ball before. You were the same place they were 3 years ago. Like, just step back for a little bit, slow it down. Don't get mad at them. Take it easy and build them up, because if they're not going to get better, if you yell at them, then the level of play is going to stay at the same level and it's going to be crappy rugby. But if you take the time, even if it's not as fun for you, and build them up, that's how you get your team to build up and you get that higher level of play.
Well, I always like to take this when we go down the rugby road and pull us back into the business. How does that apply to your business as a lawyer?
So you mean how does rugby apply to being a lawyer?
Mm-hmm.
Well, where do I start? Toughness, teamwork, communication.
You punched in the face a lot,
professional,
right?
to your opponent, even when they're not being as nice. I don't know. I think you can apply rugby values to almost anything you do in life. It's certainly taught me to be tough as a lawyer, and to overcome adversity, to work as a team when we have a challenging case or a challenging problem, communicating with each other to try and figure out a solution. And, like we talked about, life is a marathon, and so is rugby. Rugby is 80 minutes, and that's a marathon to me. I mean, maybe it's not to other people, but 80 minutes of rugby is a marathon to me. It's grueling. And you can't really hit reset button at rugby. You don't get the huddles or the timeouts. You just have to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's numerous rugby analogies I could use to mindfulness. Maybe that's what should be my class, rugby and mindfulness.
That's what I was going to ask you is, have you brought any of the rugby-isms into your mindfulness instruction with the kids at U of A?
I haven't done too much of it, other than to kind of, I guess one thing I do tell the students is to be socially interactive and get involved in the community. I do use Engage as an example, but I don't know that I dig as deep as I should, because you're bringing up a pretty good topic, and there are a lot of things that rugby can be applied to in real life, including law school and the legal community.
I was going to say, we were talking last week with Angus about this. We're darn close to that Yogi Berra of rugby book. We might just be building up to that episode sometime here soon.
Yeah. Somebody's going to have to write it all down, though, Cam.
Well, we could get a few more of these episodes with some rugby folks on, and we could just chop them all together into an episode, right?
There you go. Life according to rugby.
Oh yeah. Hey, well, here while we're on that topic, then I got one I missed out on when we had Angus. Life like rugby is a game best played on the front foot.
There you go.
Oh yeah, you can't sit back and wait, right?
Nope. So define front foot for us.
Define front foot in life or rugby?
Life.
Waking up and being aggressive. That's darn close to using it in the definition there. But waking up and attacking the day, not sitting around and being reactive, but being proactive and pushing out and moving forward and going out and being proactive. I'm just going to say the same thing 3 times in a row, apparently.
That makes it a definition, right? When you repeat it 3 times.
Exactly. But I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to, is being proactive. If you sit back and wait, take the rugby example. If you're in the defensive line and you got a big guy running at you, if you sit back and wait, he's going to run you over and he's going to laugh all the way to the try zone. But if you go up and you hit him, you meet him halfway, that's where you want to be playing rugby, right? When you initiate contact, you're not going to get hurt. You always want to be the one initiating contact. If you sit back and wait, that's when you get hurt.
Great. Matt, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Going back to stress management, mindfulness, there's actually a lot of science out there that you run out of willpower the longer the day goes on. By the afternoon, you're gassed. Just like in rugby, by the 80th minute, you're toast. So the idea of tackling something early in the day is actually proven to lead to success. Mark Twain said that if you eat one live frog every morning, nothing worse could happen the rest of the day. And essentially what he means is like, get rid of the big stuff immediately, and then the rest of the day is going to go smooth. So I agree with that. You got to tackle things early while you still have the energy to do it. Because if you don't, likelihood is when the afternoon hits, that project's going to be waiting for you tomorrow, because you'll never have started it. So one thing I do teach my students and the lawyers is you should pick one thing every morning to try and tackle before the day gets started, so that you feel like you've taken control of the day.
Well, I was going to say, Dad, isn't that's Admiral McRaven, right? That has the speech. Yep. You want to take over from there?
Sure. I mean, Admiral Bill McRaven, one of my bosses and a friend of mine, he gave a speech at Texas University. Little you. But all seriousness, his speech, one of the fundamental things about it was get up every morning and make your bed, because then you have accomplished something and you're moving forward. You're playing front foot because you've gotten something done right from the get-go, as opposed to just mucking through the motions. You've accomplished something, and it's something that's simple to do, and we can all do it every morning.
All right, I'm going to try to tie that back into rugby, and this might be a swing and a miss on this, though. You get up every morning, you want to make your bed. You get that little task because it gives you what you need to move forward, right? What do you do when you have shit ball in rugby? Pick and go. Get that couple inches. Once you start moving forward, you got a platform to attack from, right? You got to take those little victories as you can and set yourself up for the big expectations later on, right?
Yeah. Well, and Matt, you may recognize this. It's the disruptor, right? So when you're in the, like Cam just said, in the shit, in a bad spot, what's that disruptor that can help break you out of it? And in rugby, in that case of rugby, it's go back to slow ball, get control, get everybody back in, back in some form of attack. And just like life, it's that disruptor. If you had a shitty day the day before and you go to bed and you get up in the morning, well, if you get something done in a positive sense, like making your bed, then I guarantee it's going to be a better day today than it was yesterday.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned make your bed, because I teach that too. And I specifically use the make your bed analogy. I say it doesn't have to necessarily be make your bed, but pick something small that you're going to completely dominate. Whether don't make it big. So maybe this is the exact opposite of what I just said like 5 minutes ago. But start with something small that you're going to completely be able to handle, and then slowly work up to that frog. But do try and get the frog done in the morning. But yeah, I teach that. I think they're also called keystone habits or something like that. Just find something you can do every morning. It's short and quick, but that you have complete control over.
And, kind of touching back to like we were talking about at the very beginning, the reset buttons that, we are saying students get a lot of the time while they're in class, but for the marathon, you don't really have that. That's something that I've been working on myself, working from home in this entrepreneurial stage of my life, to where I need those reset buttons. And it's about finding what it is, whether it's, going and taking my dog on a walk. That's my favorite one. Just go take him on a walk. He's happy. I get to go outside, be in the sun, get that natural energy from the sun and all of that. It's an active thing, so it gets your heart going a little bit. Go on your quick walk, come back in and dive into things. And being able to find those type of tasks that can help you mentally reset yourself so that you can be in a positive mindset moving forward. I think that's huge.
Well, and meditation too. I know, it sounds weird. I don't know if if either of you have ever tried meditation, but it's another way to hit the reset. And it's a way to one of my pillars or whatever, to focus on the present and to just take some time to focus on your breath and before you enter that next, whatever it is you're going to do.
Oh yeah, I'm one when I do my morning physical therapy and stretches. I do some meditation then, and I've also found myself the more I do it, the more I like to do it. You know, if I'm going through planning things out and finding myself stressed out, it's like, hey, go sit down for 15 minutes and just make yourself focus on your breath. And I mean, it's one of those things. We can get Corey Katuna back on here, and she can tell me how well I'm doing on my meditation. To me, it's almost like just sitting and making myself think about the problem until I figure it out. And that's the kind of the way I see it, is you just sit there and you focus, and you just focus your energy onto the problem and try to relax yourself and figure it all out.
Yeah, well, I like to look at meditation as training for the mind. You know, like you said, Matt, is being able to focus. So the more consistent my meditations are, my meditation practice is, I guess, is the better way of saying it. The better I'm able to focus. So when I dive into my focus time during the day, and I'm focusing on that single task, whatever that may be, you know, proposal, whatever that I'm working on, then yeah, it allows me to do that because I've practiced it every day, and that training and that to tell you the truth, that's how I started meditating. That's what drove me to, or incentivized me to start meditating, was that it's training for my mind, because all the other stuff, that touchy-feely, make me feel good and all that, yeah. Well, now I know, you know, I got tricked into it with the whole, it's just training for, it's PT for your mind, but now I know about all the other benefits I get from it also. So yeah.
Well, I think that's an important way of looking at it, because I know probably, well, hell, I'm your son, so that's probably part of it at least. But I definitely had that kind of mindset of like, you know, you hear someone talk about finding inner peace and all that kind of stuff. It almost goes in one ear out the other for me. But then when you start looking at it as visualization, as training, you know, visualization, that calling it that was huge for me, because I visualize rugby games, and that made sense to me immediately. And that's the same way I treat it. You know, you sit down, focus on your breath, visualize how you're going to take on your day.
So I really appreciate you being on the show today, Matt, carving out some time this afternoon, and joining us for a little bit of education on mindfulness and how to handle stress, and giving back to the community with Engage. And, you know, I think one of the things that, you know, my favorite thing that I started on our show, and now we have to always do it, is what you learn. And I'm going to throw it. I always make the guest go last, but you know what, Matt, because I like you, I'm going to let you go first today.
What I learned today is that I should start implementing rugby values into my mindfulness teaching. maybe even make that the title of my course.
Yeah, I love it. You could use that. You could use my picture from my book.
Yeah, I'll make it required reading.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I'm all for that. Cam.
So something Matt mentioned here a little while ago was talking about the studies showing that people run out of willpower. That's something I hadn't heard before, and I found that very interesting, that people are, you know, really running out of gas as the day goes on. And I think that's super interesting, because when you understand that, and you understand whether, you know, it's mentally or physically you're running out of gas, you know, like you didn't eat food today, you need that, your body needs it. And understanding that that physiological situation there, I think it helps you to understand, you know, your mental headspace a lot more too.
And for me, it was this Matt, you talking about your opponent, and, you know, in dealing with law, and just treating them just like you would on the rugby pitch. You know, it's going to be head to head, blow to blow. But, you know, when that gavel, I mean, I'm just envisioning this. You know, the gavel strikes. Judge strikes his gavel down. It's like, you go, okay, good game. Yeah.
Want to go have a beer?
I love that.
That's great.
I appreciate it. Hey, tell us how we can, anybody that wants to, which hopefully all our listeners will, how they can support Engage.
Yeah, if you go to www.engagearizona.com, that gives you all the information you need. We have a pretty good website, and there's also, you know, if you want to donate, there's a link for doing that. If you live in Tucson and you want to come out and help, we're always looking for volunteers too. And as we've talked about, they're hard to find. They really, truly have to be motivated to do it. I can't give them anything else.
Yeah.
So if they should reach out to me if they're interested, because we could always use more volunteers.
So it's engagearizona.com or org?
Com.
All right, engagearizona.com. So check that out. It's a great program. It's doing wonders for kids of all abilities in the Tucson area. So let's help that program out. And thank you, Matt, for being part of that and starting that off. And thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. This is my reset button. I go back to motion writing after this. So,
well, there you go. Glad we could be your reset button for the day, Matt. Thanks for being on.
Yep, absolutely.